Welcome to our plan review and construction webinar. Today's webinar is about our submission processes for submitting plans to our office, getting approval of your plans, issuing a permit for your plans, and then we'll also talk about things that need to come after plan review approval and permit issuance to try to give some guidance for everybody on what they need to do to be successful from their project start to finish. The very first thing we always want you guys to do is to visit our website. And the website is up here at the top, osfm.fire.ca.gov. We always want you to come into our website because the most up-to-date information that we will be providing for you is on our website for all the submission processes. Once you come to the OSFM website, we want you to come to divisions, and we are in the Fire Life Safety Division. This is our Fire Life Safety page. On our page, it'll give you an overview of everything that we do and where our authority is for state-owned buildings and specified state-occupied buildings and state institutions. You'll find some banners here that have that are drop-downs, and if you come to construction projects for plan review, it'll give you some more information about plan review, the division that we have, and what we do, where we get our regulations from. And we'll always find some helpful links down here, things such as project elements that can be started ahead of our permitting process, our actual plan review submittal requirement information. Very soon we will have the video of this webinar today, have a link as well. Things that need to have happen after permit issuance and during construction. We also have links to our alternate means forms, or sample of what that would look like, a link to our local fire authority access letter, our phase plan review guidelines, and the OSFM construction permit extension request process. Let's go ahead and we'll look at the plan review submittal requirement information. When you open this up, it's a PDF that everyone can download. These are functional links here in the table of contents to help you navigate the document, as it is a little lengthy, but it is very necessary, and we want to make sure that there's enough information out there for everyone to follow along and understand the requirements to make a successful submission. So first things, we want you guys to evaluate if you need a permit, and we have some information here that will help you understand when you need a permit. One of those is the memo I mentioned on our page about things you can do ahead of or without a permit. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. This is that memo. It will tell you the purpose of what this memo is, and it'll give you some information about projects that require a permit prior to proceeding with any work. You'll also see some information on stuff that can be started, limited items that can be started at risk prior to getting our approval, and projects that usually would not require a permit, and we'll provide some examples of what you guys might be submitting that may or may not need a permit. Please review the document. It's subject to change. Make sure that you're always reviewing the most up-to-date version. Other things that we want you guys to pay attention about needing a permit for is we require a permit for each building or structure that is part of the project. So if there are multiple buildings in your project, every building will have to have its own permit. This is for the purposes of inspections in the field and issuance of certificate of completion and certificate of occupancy after plan review. Without separate permits, we can't finish the buildings individually, and therefore it could hold up certificate of occupancies for all buildings. So we like to eliminate that by having a permit for every structure. You will also need a permit for each building, and you'll need a permit for each phase if you're doing a phased plan review, which we'll talk about later. And finally, we've been working on a way to allow multiple building submittals to be accepted not just on paper, but in electronic plan review as well. And multiple buildings that are submitted in one single plan set, you will still need a permit for every building in the plan set. One of the things that you can opt to do, this is optional, it's not required, is a preliminary project review meeting. This is something that we do ask for phased submittals so that we can get an idea of the project, its scope, and help provide some guidance on submission to have a smooth process. It does require a permit to be saved in draft prior to the meeting starting. Without a permit, we will need to spend the first parts of the meeting getting a permit started for you so that we can proceed. The time for the meeting from the OSFM is always billed to a state agency. So anything for those meetings that are set by the design firms will be, our time will go to the state agency for billing. The next thing we want to talk about is status inquiries. We get these a lot. We get emails and phone calls asking about status of plans. So we provided some information about typically what to expect once you've submitted an application and submitted plans to our office. Our plans are reviewed on a first come, first served basis. Plan review times are approximately 8 weeks prior to the start of the review. So please remember that it is prior to the review starting. It is not that it's not that we'll have your plans back to you in less than 8 weeks. We hope that we can do that. We strive for that, but sometimes with the amount of plans that come in, it has a heavier queue, and it just takes more time to get through them or get to them and start them. Actual review time is dependent on the size, complexity, and quality of the documents provided. Simple projects can have a lot of complex elements to it and may take a while to do a full review of all the code requirements. We're trying to get to them as fast as we can. We just need time to process them. As far as getting some notifications about your status, the systems that we use, both GovModus and Project Docs that we'll be talking about today, they provide updates to you to the email addresses that you have for your accounts on your permits. And they do this as we reach each milestone of the review process. So if we've received your plans, when we've taken them in and put them in the queue, when we started the review, when we finished a review, when we've issued a permit, it will notify the applicant and the agency contact at all of those milestones. So if you're looking for a status on your plans, the first place you should check is the email account that you use to sign up and make the permit under in GovModus. The emails that you receive there will tell you the last milestone that was reached. The purpose of the notifications is to hopefully reduce the amount of phone calls and emails that we get asking about status on the plans, because it takes time away from our doing the review in order to look at the project in the system, try to evaluate where it's at, and provide an answer on a status. We would prefer to not provide a status update during our review. That's what the email notifications are for, and that's really what we're trying to use those for, is to eliminate our having to stop the review to provide updates. Deferred permit submittals. This is something that some projects utilize, a lot of projects utilize actually. These come in after the main construction permit plans have been approved. The OSFM allows just 3 items to be deferred without specific approval ahead of time. And those are fire alarms and emergency voice evacuation systems, fire sprinklers and suppression systems, and emergency responder radio coverage. When you are deferring them, please include the types of systems that you're deferring as well. Sorry if that wasn't very readable. Hopefully this is better. The next thing we'll talk about is bid and reference drawings and the documents associated with them. We need all bid documents to be clearly marked with a large label that says bid document not for construction. Any reference drawing needs to be clearly marked for reference only, not for constructions. Any drawings from previous projects that are submitted for reference shall be provided as a reduced scan onto a new sheet for the current project. And there's an example that we'll show you in a second. If the reference drawings are part of a previously approved GovModus permit, in lieu of providing them as a reduced scan, you can also have a note on your current project that identifies the sheet number in your plan set and identify the GovModus number for the previously approved plan set. And our review staff should be able to go look up the approved drawings that are required to be provided in our system, and we can reference the drawings in that fashion as well. And here's an example of what we mean by a reduced scan on a new plan set. Okay, we're going to look at some of the questions and see if we can provide some of those answers. There's a question about if something does not need a permit, do we need a submit for a permit exemption? No, if it does not require a permit under code, then you do not need to submit for anything. If there's an improvement on the site that needs a permit but is not associated with a particular building, how do we proceed? I'm assuming you're talking about site improvements. The work may or may not need a permit. You'll need to determine if the work requires a permit under the building code or fire code. And we have a question about, can water tanks and emergency generators be deferred submittals? No, they cannot, not without specific approval from us. And we're going to ask questions as to why we need them to be deferred. Okay, go ahead and move on. Phase plan review. So phase plan review, usually we reserve this for large complex projects that have long construction times, and we can get some of the review started and get the project going during, and the rest of the plan review can be performed during construction. I'll go ahead and open the phase guidelines. These are our guidelines. It tells you the prerequisites. It tells you about the preliminary meeting that's required, what's required during that meeting. It will also tell you what we will help provide. It then outlines what is included in the two phases, phase one, and I'm not going to read through this, but also phase two. We also allow for demolition and grading permits to be separate from phase one and phase two. And these are the requirements that if those permits, both either individually or a combined permit together as a demo and grading permit in one submittal, those are the requirements that have to be met. And there's some information about how to submit. Local Fire Authority Access Approval Form. So this is a form that we provide to be submitted to the local fire department for them to review and approve elements of your project that directly relate to the response to an emergency for them. This allows them to help ensure that things like fire department access roads have turning radiuses that their equipment can make. They get to have some input on where Knox box locations are. We like to allow them some say in those elements so that they can respond effectively. However, if any requests that they make or requirements that they make on projects that are for the state seem unreasonable, the OSFM will always defer to code minimums, like every other project that we always use. The form looks like this. Anything that has a space to have something filled out must be filled out. It explains to the locals the code sections of what we're asking for, asks them to approve the elements if these are applicable to the project, and just some other basic information and their approval and signature. Another thing we receive a lot of is alternate means and methods requests. At one time, we did use separate GovModus permits for those requests. We no longer do that. We utilize the existing GovModus project application permit number for the AMMR. It's submitted as part of your plan review. You have to utilize, sorry, I'm not sure how to make this zoom in more. This is a sample template. It's just a blank document that shows you the format that we would like to see it in and the required signature areas for approval from all three division chiefs for the OSFM. When you submit it for plan review, our plan reviewers will review it, make comments, and send it back and forth just like a normal plan review comments on the pages. And we will eventually get to a point where the reviewer will pass it to their supervisor. If their supervisor is okay with what the alternate means and methods are, they will then take it to the division chiefs for review and approval. Once approved, the signed AMMR must be scanned onto the plans before approval and permit issuance. And let's see if I can provide an example here of just a filled out template that we showed before, kind of the format that it needs to be in. Going to go ahead and take some more questions. We have a question about photovoltaic canopies and systems. Okay for deferred submittal. No, we don't allow them to be deferred. They have electrical work, which is a required element to be reviewed. They can be their own submittal. They're not deferred technically. But if you want to make them a separate aspect of the project, a different project entirely, you could do that. But we do not defer photovoltaics from a project. There was a question about the memo that I showed about work that's exempt from a permit or limited construction. I can ask and we'll find out if it will be updated for 2023, but I don't believe anything has changed, which is why the document still says the date that it has on it. There was a question about bid documents. Once the plans with the bid document label are on there, do we need to reissue drawings for the SFM with stamp or label construction drawings? Once you have your documents done for bid and you're resubmitting for final and total approval, you would just resubmit your drawings without your bid document label on your plans, and we would review and approve those. If an AMMR arrives after construction, how is that addressed? That'll be addressed through the field deputy, and they would work with their supervisor on how they would like that to be performed or created and processed. There's also a question about, can fire pumps be deferred submittals? Fire pumps can be deferred with the sprinkler system as that they interrelate with each other. So the answer for that would be yes. All right, go ahead and continue with our website. Permit extensions. Our permits are valid for 12 months after we issue them. This is stated at the bottom of the permit. Extensions are an option. One or more extensions of time can be granted for periods of not more than 180 days per extension. So we will only ever issue 6-month extensions at a time. And we will only extend 6 months into a new code cycle before the plans will not be allowed to be extended any further, and the project will have to be redesigned or confirmed to be compliant with the new code cycle and resubmitted for review. Anybody making a request for an extension and has to do so in writing and demonstrate the reason for why they need an extension. And there's a process we have for that. And this document will outline the purpose of that, the scope, what documents we require to see, the procedure for it. And here's a sample letter format that we want to see with the information that needs to be filled out and submitted. This will get sent to the supervisor, and they will review and issue an extension. Over-the-counter reviews. Over-the-counter reviews for us are on Tuesdays. Examples of stuff that would be acceptable for an OTC review are things that are limited to 60 minutes or less. So minor tenant improvements, a removal and replacement of roof or ground HVAC units, exterior interior barrier removals, alterations to fire sprinklers that involve no more than 20 sprinklers. We do not guarantee that these types of things will be reviewed or approved during the OTC. Elements that are provided may take a longer time. Any review as an OTC that we see going beyond the 60-minute time limit will be taken into the queue and placed on the shelf for review and approval, and will go into the queue process and will fall in line for a first come, first serve review. Examples of projects that do not qualify over-the-counter reviews: additional or expansions to existing buildings, new buildings, even if they're metal prefabbed buildings. We also don't allow metal prefab buildings to be deferred. Anything that includes hazardous materials, high piled storage, projects of a size that would take longer than 60 minutes to review. Anything that includes alterations to the means of egress, such as rated corridors. and anything that includes level 1 generators requiring compliance with the California Electric Code. These are just examples. These are not entire lists. Just trying to provide some guidance for what to start thinking about in terms of showing up for an over-the-counter appointment. Over-the-counters for us are on Tuesdays between the time frame of 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We check in at 8 a.m. These, like our review queue, are handled on a first-come, first-served basis with no guarantee of review depending on the number of applicants that are in the office at the time of your arrival. If the lobby is full, you may not be reached by the time we stop doing over-the-counter reviews. An application has to be submitted prior to your arrival, has to be in the system and the new status for us to do a review. The last appointment that we will start is at 12:30, which will end at 1:30. Over-the-counters right now are only limited to paper plan reviews. We do not have the ability to do electronic plan reviews over-the-counter. Due to limited space in our over-the-counter plan review area, we will only have the ability to have one project representative and one design professional that has signature authority to be allowed to attend the review. As we still are slightly in a COVID world, if COVID protocols are in place, we will revert to our previous instruction to have plans dropped off in the lobby of the office and ask everyone to wait outside, and we will call them and let them know when we're done with the review or ask them if we have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and answer some more questions. There's a question about AMMRs again. Are they submitted in project docs? They are submitted with the plans, regardless whether it's paper or electronic review, and the AMMR document itself would be uploaded into the documents folder, which we'll talk about when we review project docs. Could temporary construction trailers be submitted as an OTC review? It may be possible. It may not be. You could try for it. If it takes longer than 60 minutes, we'll have to put it into the queue. There's a question about OTCs and can we bring 2 or 3 projects or only one per day? You get one project and you get 1 hour time slot for that. If you want to have a second project reviewed and you want to go to the end of the line afterwards and see if you can get another time slot, or if we have a light day and there's only 2 people and there's nobody behind you, we could look at additional projects at that time. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go on to addendums. Addendums to the project for the purposes of our RSs are changes to the plans prior to the start of construction. These are handled with the plan review staff, and requests for addendums have to be used using the existing permit to the original plans, just like the alternate means of methods requests. There's instructions here for how to do this for a paper format, and there are instructions for how to do this for our electronic format. Okay, multiple buildings in one set of plans. This is one that has been asked for quite a while to be added to our electronic plan review process, and we have come up with the methodology to allow this to happen. So this one's going to take a little bit of time to talk about. So multiple buildings in one set of plans are for work at the same facility location. So these cannot be used as a statewide submittal where multiple buildings are in the scope of the project. An option that you have would be to submit all buildings in one single set of plans, but you will still need a separate permit application for each building in the plan set. Thing to note, which is in bold and underlined here, is that this does not allow any work on the buildings to commence until the entire plan set has been approved. So if there is a need or desire to start work on any building prior to a full plan review approval, then your best option would be to submit your plans as separate submittals so that each building can be reviewed and approved at different times, and you can submit them in the order that you would like them to be reviewed, hopefully approved, and have work started. Once a multi-building plan set has been submitted, we cannot undo this, as it can drastically change our review process, especially in project docs. So once it's done, we won't be removing any buildings from the sets. We won't be adding any buildings to the sets. It is what it is. So Please plan according to your desired process and flow. The requirements that we have for multiple building sets, as we have said, we need one single set of plans that either complies with our paper plan review requirements or our electronic plan review requirements, which are listed down below. We still need one application for each building in the plan set. The cover sheet must list all permit application numbers that are in the plan set with the building names next to them. And the design team needs to identify the permit application number that will be the one that is primarily used for plan review by identifying it with the word primary next to it. Preferably, this should be a building that is scheduled to be completed last in the project. This will allow field staff to utilize that permit throughout the project's timeframe. All plan review will occur under this primary number. If you're submitting on paper plans, all of your applications shall be identified, have the format identified as a paper plan review. If you're submitting electronic plans, the primary permit application number will be identified as an electronic plan review, and we'll show you where the toggles are for those later. And all your other applications will be identified as paper. This will prevent those other applications from auto-generating plan review tasks in project docs, which if the design team were to finish, including uploading drawings and submitting, could end up having multiple plan review staff performing reviews on the same sets of plans at the same time or at different times, resulting in excessive billing to your projects, resulting into delays as your design teams receive comments from different people and things like that. So by submitting paper on the other buildings in the application, they will just be in the system waiting for us to process them once the electronic plans are approved. The multi-building plan set will only be submitted under the primary application number. That way we only review it under one application. Okay, so paper plan review requirements. All plans must be submitted to our office in Sacramento. We provide the address on our site. We also talk about the sizes of plans that we accept, the sizes of documents that we will accept as well. The physical paper plans have to be appropriately bound, either per item or per volume. The weight of each item or volume is 40 pounds or less. Anything above that won't be accepted. Anything unbound will not be accepted. Title block and document cover page configurations shall be in accordance with our information on title block and stamp locations. This has been a requirement since we started our electronic plan review. However, it's not been something that we have very strict on. This is going to change. We are going to start requiring the stamp location that is identified in our title block configuration and stamp location instructions to be on the plans so that we can have a stamp location in the same place that we have on our electronic plans so that we can ensure our plans and stamps have a place to go. We're not overstamping information. We're not trying to stamp up near where the project's sheets are bound, where the stamp is invisible unless you completely open the sheets to their fullest. We'd like to have a nice clear place for that. There are other requirements such as the drawing scale requirements about providing scales on the plans. They have to be stamped and signed by a responsible licensed design professional. In the past, we used to require that plans be wet signed or that we had to have a letter authorizing electronic signature. We no longer require this. The plans can be electronically signed and we will accept them without a letter. We will not accept paper plans or electronic plans with any pre-printed OSFM approval stamp block and language. In the past, some agencies were pre-printing this block for our staff to sign and date. We no longer accept that. So please remove those from your templates if you have them. We only require one copy of the submittal for review. Once submitted, plans submitted in paper format cannot be changed to our electronic format. Trying to do reviews in two separate medias would not be very effective. We don't allow it to switch. Plans after the review or with approval or rejection that are ready to be picked up from our office are the responsibility of the applicants. Outgoing plans will be held for a maximum of 5 business days, after which they will be recycled if the applicants are unresponsive in picking them up. We have intake staff that will reach out and provide a reminder, but at some point we can't hold on to plan sets. Upon notification that your plans are ready to be picked up, there are two options. You can provide a mailing label, and we can mail it. We use a courier such as FedEx, UPS, or GLS. We do have mailing supplies such as bags and things like that, but the label and the shipping instructions shall be provided by the applicant, or you can pick them up at our office here in Sacramento. Once paper plans are stamped and approved and have been issued a permit, the instructions that are on our plan review approval state that the plans have to be scanned and uploaded into the managed documents section of your GUMO's permit application. This is how we have a record that the plans were approved, and it's how our field staff know that it's part of when they look up a permit, they can see what the project is about. They can get an idea of what it entails before they come out on site. Typically, our field staff will not schedule inspections if they do not see uploaded approved drawings and managed documents. It's a required function, and to ensure we get them, we will probably not schedule an inspection until the documents have been uploaded. Paper plans that have multiple buildings in a plan set, so a multi-building submittal, will only be uploaded to the primary permit designated for plan review, not all the permits that were in the submittal. And any amended construction documents need to be slip sheeted into the previously approved set, and the entire submittal needs to be uploaded again. For electronic plan review, all of the plans that are submitted must meet different requirements than our paper process because they function in an electronic program, and we need to operate with inside its permissions and functionality. Again, we cannot have any pre-printed OSFM approval stamp block language. We need a clear space where our stamp is provided for. The file types for uploading shall be in accordance with drawing file type requirements. Typically, our instructions will say PDFs. We don't have the ability to open up CAD drawings or anything like that, so we need the drawings to be submitted in PDF format. Accepted sheet sizes can be found in this configuration area that's lower down that we'll show you in a minute. Same thing with the title block. We'll show you that as well. Scaling requirements are mentioned in this document below as well. Files should be in accordance with our electronic file naming standards. This is extremely important, and we'll go over it when we get to that part of this document, but it's very important that everyone pays attention to those. It is still one of our biggest issues. Your sheets still need to be stamped and signed by a responsible, designed, and licensed professional. Once submitted as electronic and we've restarted the review, we cannot change to a paper format. After we approve your electronic plans, you'll get a notification that you download your plans, and you can download them from the approved folder in Project Docs. Drawing file requirements, we'll touch on some of these. So we require that each sheet or page be uploaded as a separate file in landscape view. We cannot accept single files that have multiple pages inside of them as a PDF. This is a web-based electronic plan review software, and trying to open large multi-page files is a drag on the system. It slows down the review time and doesn't allow us to quickly and efficiently navigate your project. If you upload a single multi-page file, we will reject your project in Project Docs, and we will remove the sheets from the applicable folders into an incorrect folder and ask you to resubmit appropriately. Every sheet must contain an identifier in the bottom right corner of the drawing reflected as V1, V2, V3, etc. These are the version numbers. This helps us know when each sheet was brought into the review. So V1 is the first time the sheet has been submitted. V2 is after the full initial review. V3 is after that. So if you add a sheet into a submittal on your back check, whatever version number your back check has, that is the number that new sheet will have as well. So if it's a V2, even your new sheet will say V2 so that we know it came in with the second submittal without having to go and look in the history of each file to determine what date it came in on. Supporting documents, etc., those can be multiple page files. They typically don't contain as much data as a drawing set contains, and we usually do not have problems opening them and reviewing them as a multi-page file. File type requirements, as I said, shall be provided in PDF format. we need everyone to flatten all their PDFs to the smallest possible size. We find files of multiple layers where the system has struggled opening them or can't display certain elements because they're a picture. So flatten everything and get the file size as reduced as possible before you submit. For supporting documents, searchable PDF files are extremely helpful and help speed up the review. And currently, Project Docs does not support 3D files. Electronic file naming standards. This is important to keep your sheets in order in the drawings folder in Project Docs and helps us navigate through your submittal quickly and efficiently. So they should be numbered and named in accordance to their order listed, provided on the title sheet, cover sheet, or table of contents. They should start with a numeric value. It's a 4-digit numeric value. It's at the very beginning of the file. It helps them keep them in order. Anybody who's familiar with numbering documents in Microsoft Windows is familiar that the number sequence follows a specific order, and we're trying to keep the files in order. Please limit your number of characters in your file name to 35 characters or less. No special characters. Dashes and periods seem to be okay. Do not include any dates or version numbers. Your file names have to keep the same name all the way through the submittal. Any changes to the file names doesn't allow the system to do what is called versioning on top of the original file and will be returned so that your files can be properly named. If you have any questions or need assistance trying to figure any issues that you're having with that out, this email address that's in the document goes to our help desk and we can help you navigate those issues. Here's examples of what we're talking about when we talk about the file naming standards. So document files, like your multi-page PDFs for your spec package, etc., can be start with a 2-digit number, and then the name of what that document is. Drawing file naming standards start with a 4-digit number, then they list the sheet number, that is the sheet number that the design team assigned to it, and that sheet's name. So if this is the sheet G001 and it's the cover sheet, and it's the first sheet in the submittal, its file name will be this. It's fairly simple and straightforward. So an example would be, if this is what a drawing sheet index looks like, this list that you have should be changed to look like this. And then these are the names of the files that you'll name each individual sheet, and this will be uploaded, and this will keep these numbers here, keep these in the order that you want them in. If you need to add files to your completed upload, after you've uploaded, ask us for assistance to either return to you your task to you to get your ability to upload reinstated, or see if we can temporarily turn on upload rights for you so that you can add a new sheet. If you need to add something in between two sheets, the simple thing to do is to put a decimal at the end of the sequential number at the front, not your sheet numbers, but the sequential number at the front. So between 0001 and 0002, inserting a sheet that says 0001.1 would then insert that sheet in between the cover sheet and this erosion control sheet. And we provide that example here. Numerically, these sheets would fall between sheet 1 and sheet 2. I'm going to see if there's any questions on that. There's a question about providing scale bars for different views. If you have different scales on a sheet, like a detail sheet, we talk about that a little bit down further, but I'll just answer the question. You need to tell us what the scale is for each detail. If you have multiple scales, it's helpful if you provide a scale bar so that we can, if we need to, we can calibrate it specifically to that scale versus just typing it out. We may not be able to manually enter it into the system. We may need to actually calibrate it. So additional scale bars may be helpful. Okay, title block configuration and stamp location. So this is where we're identifying multiple pieces of information. We talk about how our OSFM stamp. We can do what's called batch stamping in our system, where we stamp them all at once. which reduces the project's time that they get charged for us physically stamping pages one at a time. We coordinated our stamp to be below the DSA stamp, so we didn't want to interfere with their stamp location. For our submittals, 8.5 by 11s need to have a clear area at the bottom right-hand corner of a page with these requirements and this size. All the drawings, these are the typical drawings we will accept. Notice that we only accept the 36 by 48 inch plans electronically only. That is so that they actually fit on our desks and don't fall off in paper format. The requirements are all from the upper right-hand corner on drawings. The locations of the boxes are the same, and the size of the clear area are the same. And what these will come out to is, this is an example of an 8.5 by 11 from the bottom right corner of the sheet, the physical edge of the sheet as if you were to print it and physically touch it. 1 inch in and 1 inch up, and the box size needs to be provided. And if you don't want to provide the box, you could just provide a clear area for our stamp to fall into. And all the drawing files, it's from the physical upper right corner of the sheet, not the margin. Again, from the physical corner of the page. Since everybody uses different margin sizes, we went with the measurement from the actual corner of the page. And it tells you how many inches down for the top of the box, the bottom of the box, and the size of the area that needs to be provided as a clear space. Drawing scale requirements. So we discussed this a little bit already. All plans must be drawn to scale. Each sheet must have an independent scale provided on it. If you have a detail sheet with more, provide those, and please reflect a 3-inch bar of the scale that your plans are in on each sheet for us to be able to measure with. If more than one scale is on a sheet, an independent scale must be accompanied to each applicable detail. If it's all typical stuff, 1/8 or 3/32, things like that, simply, it may be that noting it on the detail, we can just set the scale to that. If it's an odd scale that we can't set, we may require you to provide an actual scale so we can calibrate our measuring tools. Fire alarm plans, in accordance with NFPA 72 and some other stuff, we'd like to see them in 1/8 scale. This allows us to provide proper measurements and do the reviews. For electronic plans, we do not have the ability to use some measuring aids for fire alarm strobe coverages that we can do on paper. So one thing we're asking is that the design teams submit a legend for those types of measurements. And the legend will outline for each one of them the mounting location type, wall or ceiling, what the candela ratings are, the max heights of the lenses for the different candelas, and a size of that outline, which is the same scale as your drawings. And the examples of what we're talking about will be here in a second. Another thing for your drawings would be that specifically for electronic plans, we want all the drawings to be calibrated and saved to ensure that it is available to the reviewer in the same calibration you created it in. Fire alarm plans need to contain a note saying that the required detection rating is based on NFPA 72, and to scale the space outlining templates to be provided per the example below. So as we were talking about, these are the outlines that need to be provided and identify what they are so that we can adequately measure, for example, a wall mount template for a strobe and the candelas that they are and what the area they cover. This allows us to quickly come in on electronic plans and draw a box over this area for this specific candela, copy it and apply it to your drawing sheets, and start doing coverages and checking coverages. See if we have any more questions. Does the state look at product data as a design document? Yes, we do look at specifications and design data and product data during the submissions. Okay, so those are pretty much our one of our guidelines. The next stuff is about getting started. So after you come through here and you review all the stuff that we just walked through to make sure that you're looking at the most up-to-date version of it, as we'll keep this document updated on our website. For those who haven't submitted to us before, we're going to review basically how to get your browser configured and get set up to go into GovModus. So there will be, I'm not going to walk everybody through, I'm just going to kind of overview this. There's some instructions on how to set your browser up. And then once you have that set up, it'll bring you to our website called GovModus Fire. Here, if you've never been here before, you'll need to register and create an account. And this is where we'd like to talk about account creations. This was something we brought up when we first implemented GovModus, and not everybody liked it, but we've seen everybody kind of, for the most part, kind of follow along with it, and it seems to work out well. Each application has one owner, and whatever email address that if someone signs in with and creates an application, that person owns that permit, and nobody else can access it without the login information for that GovModus Fire account. So with that in mind, if you need to share access with other people on your project, you have an option to create a password that is just for GovModus Fire and share the login information. Or what we recommend is that you create a project-specific email address and project-specific password that you set up ahead of time, and then create your GovModus Fire account with that information. And then anybody else that you need to have be able to open the application, see the information, upload drawings or documents, etc. Providing them that login information will help them do that. There were some concerns over security. This is a third-party cloud-based website. It is not connected to the state servers. It has military-grade security. We've run it past the state IT people as well. It is something that is secure. So sharing the password, if I know a lot of people had concerns with that, but that's where we identified if it was a project-specific email address and project-specific password, it wouldn't, people would feel, not as concerned about sharing any passwords that they may use for the email address somewhere else. Once you log in, to start a new permit, there's a button that says apply for new permit, or there's a banner at the top that says permitting. And if you were to hover over it, you could drop down and create a new permit application. Once it pops up, the permit application will be there. You'll need to fill all the fields, and we provide some explanations and helpful information on what those fields are at this right here. Then identifying the plan review format. So this would be paper or electronic. It's shown right here as an example. So if you're submitting your plans physically to us on paper, you would select paper. If you're going to be uploading electronic files into project docs, not into GovModus, then you would choose electronic, and it would, upon completion of the submission of the application, move you into our project doc system, which we'll review in a minute. And you would continue more items in that program to officially submit your plans to us. If you're doing a multi-building submittal, this is where your primary application will be chosen as electronic, and your other buildings in your submittal will be identified as paper. Once you're done filling everything out, you would hit submit to submit the application. If you're not quite ready to submit, you can always save and complete later. After you hit submit, it'll go through a plan submittal checklist. It'll take you through a checklist and ask you to consider all the items. Some items are marked as asterisks as required items, but the other items on the list are things we want you to consider based on what your scope of work is. So please review the list and see if it helps to identify things that you may need to include in your submittal that you haven't already provided before you send your plans to us, either paper or electronic. If you went electronic, it would take you into project docs, and this document will just walk you through how to do the system, what to click on, what happens next, and we're gonna kind of go over that stuff a little later. So I'm just gonna kind of scroll through here, but it'll talk to you about where to click to upload files, what to do with that, and how to get how to complete your task. and get everything submitted to us for a successful submission. Once we do a review and we receive comments from us, or you get some kind of a notification back to us that says you have either a pre-screen corrections or to respond and resubmit to plan review comments. In paper plans, this would just be a red line set and an email to your GovMotus Fire account email address that tells you your plans have been rejected and that there's comments. You would resubmit your GovMotus application to new status. You would provide the most recent red line check set, provide deficiency responses to us, and ensure that all revisions are clouded. Electronic format, comments can come in two forms. A pre-screen checklist comment that we send you means that the general intake requirements that were noted in the instructions above were not met. Your file names weren't correct. You uploaded a multi-page drawing file, things like that. Plan review change marks, those are plan review comments, and they'll have specific code deficiencies. And responding to those, they all require response in what is called a checklist or change mark viewer in the system, and we'll go over that and show you guys what it looks like later. But this talks about how to view that, how to respond to it. It also talks about how to publish redline comments from project docs and how to get our actual comments on the PDFs downloaded so that you can disperse the sheets to other people on your design team if they don't have access to project docs. If you do not see the publish button at the top of your window pane as described in the instructions when you read through this, please let us know, and we can, by emailing us here, and we can help assist you with getting that access. This again just walks through how to publish and view comments. Once you're fully ready to resubmit to us in project docs, we want to make sure that you have all your file naming standards correct, and this will walk you through the steps to complete that. And then we'll go over this common mistakes later after we look through the actual systems so that we can talk about what we saw and what those common mistakes are. But one of the things that we wanted to show were some kind of examples related to notifications you receive along the way. So we touched on that the system will notify you at different stages of your submission. So some examples would be, this would, say we've received your permit, and you'll receive an email notification once your application has been reviewed and accepted by Fire Life Safety. At each stage along the way, so then this one says that we accepted it, and currently your project is in the plan review queue. Once your plan review is complete, we'll notify you. In the meantime, please visit the website for complete access to your permit and other vital information about your project. You'll also get another one when the plan review has been approved or rejected. You'll also get a document attached to each one of these. And some of these examples would be when you first submit, it'll submit an application, it'll print it out to you as a PDF, the information that you filled out on the screen. Some examples of, like, if you get a plan review rejection, it'll say that we had a plan review, that it was deficient, who the reviewer was, and then any violations that we found along the way will be listed here as a violation. It'll have the code section that it violates and more information in the comments here, specifically as to where it belongs. This is an example sheet. Typically, we will always start our comments with a sheet number to help you identify where in your plan set these comments would be located. The comments you do receive from us, you need to provide a comment response letter, whether you choose to do it as a Word document, as a deficiency and response, or an Excel matrix for paper plans, printed out and given to us. In project docs, you'll actually respond in the system, and we'll show you where to do that in a minute. You'll get issued a permit as well from the system. It will send you this document. It'll give you information about the project, and it will tell you the card needs to be provided on site. It'll tell you this is our testing environment. This will actually say who the supervisor for the area is. And it'll give you notes on here about the validity of the period is for 1 year. And if that work does not begin on the project within 1 year of the date of the issuance of the permit, that your permit's expired, and things like that. So you'll get email notifications like these, and you'll get documents attached to them, like the ones I've been showing along the way. And that's kind of how you'll know where you're sitting in terms of the process for plan review. And you'll even get afterwards, during construction inspections and things like that, you'll get similar emails and documents for construction inspections and eventually a certificate of completion or certificate of occupancy. When you first get to the site, after you've registered with the email address you're going to use for your project and you log in, your dashboard will appear and it'll look something like this. If it's your first time, you will not have a giant list of permits here. You will only see permits in the account that you applied for the permit. So if you have multiple projects with different project-specific email addresses, which means different project GovModus accounts, you'll need to sign into each one of those individually to see those projects. 2 ways you can apply for a new application are up here at this bar, this dark gray bar. Under permitting, you can click on permit application, or there's a nice button right here that says apply for new permit. What you see here will tell you your application number and provide a link to it, what the project name is, the type of permit that you submitted, its current status based on draft, new, rejected, accepted, permit issued, things like that, and the date that you made the submission. If you happen to also be associated with our fire engineering side, you may see some license information for any licenses through their side of our program that you may need. And then at the bottom down here, you'll see stuff for a section called My Signatures Required. And this is where anytime when we get into construction inspections, you'll see here if you have anything that requires you to sign them, and we'll kind of go over that in a little bit. So essentially, since we didn't show it, this is what the application screen looks like, and this is the information that you would fill out. I've pre-filled one out for today to show everyone. There are required boxes, and they have to have information in them. Project description, just give us an overview. It does have quite a few characters available, but we don't need 3 paragraphs worth of stuff. Just kind of identify what your project is. New 23-story high-rise, how many square feet, and some other information about it that would be helpful. The applicant information is for the person that's submitting. The contractor information can be provided. None of it is required, so if you don't know it yet, you don't have to. Even if you do, it's not a requirement. It's just a field in the base program. Agency information. This information is not for the design firm. The agency information is for the state agency. So up here, we want to see the state agency name that is responsible for the project. Under billing code, we need the billing code account for the agency that is receiving all of is responsible for the cost of the project. So if you're an applicant and you don't know what this means, if you're in Sacramento, for example, there is a drop down for agency billing code that says Sacramento County SB 1022. That is not necessarily what you would need to choose based on your project. So if you're not the state agency rep and you're not sure what this is, you need to contact your state agency rep responsible for the project and ask them what that billing code information would be. Another thing that could be done, especially if you're using project-specific email addresses, state agency reps, you can create your applications, fill this information, this important information out ahead of time, save the document for later, and then provide the access to any of the parties that you may need to finish the process, and it'll already be filled out for them. So this is, again, not design firm information, state agency rep and the state agency contact info. When we ask for some basic information here, like project square footage and construction cost, Please do not, the numbers I put in here today are just for testing purposes or examples, but please do not put 1 in 1. Do not do what I did here. Provide the actual square footage, provide the actual construction cost. It's data that we use to help evaluate many factors in what's going on with your projects and our office and staffing your projects based on their size and complexity. So please provide us true and accurate information in those fields. On the left side of your screen, you'll see what we call the control panel. It will tell you what your permit number is. It'll tell you the current status. This action button will give you a list of things that you can possibly do, such as copying the application for when you want to submit your deferred submittal. Instead of typing out the entire application's worth of information again, you can copy it, adjust the fields that you need to adjust, and then submit that new copy, and it will provide a new permit number. If you're doing a multi-building submittal, instead of retyping for every permit, you can copy the application, change the description to identify the next building name, and it'll save you a lot of time on creating multiple applications. Manage documents. You have to touch this at least once during your submission process, and you're required to upload, and we provide some text up here that says, we're not doing electronic plans through here. Please upload a scan of a business card or something like that, that will satisfy the system's requirement for allowing you to submit your application to us. You'll also use it again in the future to upload approved plans for paper plan review. The other side of this, as the application proceeds through the process of plan review and construction inspections, etc., we'll have documents that are created by the system and our functions, and those are able for you to download and view, and these would be the examples of the documents that I showed on the screen earlier. Other things that you can do are request an inspection. So if we have identified, which we can't show on this one yet because this is the applicant side of the program, but once we issue a permit and if we've identified required inspections, if you click request inspections and you see a list of items there, when you're ready to have those done, you can request inspections through the field staff by going to our contact list, which is on our website under Fire Life Safety contact information. It will give you a list of our staff, where they work, the counties that are covered by the office, and you can find the applicable office, and you can request inspections through the supervisor until you become aware of which deputy will be performing your inspections, and then you can contact them directly. The other option that you have is you can request through the system and identify when you think you'll be done with your item and have it be ready to be inspected in full. And we will try to schedule an inspection as close as we can to the date that you identify. It doesn't mean that we'll be there on the date you request. It just means that you're telling us that you'll be ready by that date for sure, and then we'll try to schedule as close as we possibly can to that date. See if there's any questions on what we just talked about. There's a question about unoccupied structures such as cell tower sites. What should be listed for project square footage and occupancy load? I know that for occupancy load, I don't believe you can type in 0, so I would just put in a 1. That won't be necessarily inaccurate. It's just trying to comply with the system requirements. And square footage, I just start with the base of the tower and show that. All right. So essentially, submitting this to us and then getting the back and forth documents and emails for the plan review on paper. We've really gone over all of that. If you chose electronic, then we'd move into project docs, which when you click submit on your application, it'll bring you into GovModus, and it'll actually bring you directly into a screen that looks like this. It brings you right into your project that gets created. Your permit number will be displayed up here, and it'll show you that you have some folders here, and then it has some information out here about your tasks. So a task in project docs, if you see something here with a hyperlink under task list, you have something to do. If you see something there, don't ignore it. If it says 0 of 0 and there's nothing there, then you've completed your task or you don't currently have anything assigned to you. There are 3 parts to a task in Project Docs. You have to accept it, you have to perform it, and they have to complete it. So accepting it is as simple as clicking on this hyperlink, and it will say, do you want to accept this? And you say yes, or click OK. It will bring up what we call the task instructions window. And this project, this sample project that I'm showing did not come from GovModus. Yours will have some information here that will display information you type in your application. And then it'll provide you some task instructions. And if you read through the instructions, it'll tell you what you have to do. This first one basically says that you need to upload your documents to the appropriate folders below. And then check this box that you're done doing that so that you can complete your task. So this button will appear when you click the folder, and then you can select files to upload. It will bring this window up. Then you can either browse for files on your computer, or if you have the files open in a file explorer, you can drag them in. So I'm going to drag some files in, and I've dragged them here. What's important is that you see the names of your files listed. If you just see a symbol like this and there's nothing really there, and it doesn't show the size of the files, then you've dragged it from somewhere that the system can't read it. It sees that you wanted to do something, but it came from like an email, like Outlook, and it can't actually see the file. So you want to make sure you can see the name of the file and the sizes and things like that. Once you've got all your documents included and you click the button for upload, it will begin uploading your files to the drawings folder. For your very first submission, they should look like this. They should have be in order, and you want to see your file names. If you don't see all of the file names you intended to upload, then something got missed, and try to re-upload that file individually again by closing this window and going back to selecting files to upload, browsing, or dragging accordingly. Once I've done that, I can see that my files are here. And if that's all that I wanted to do, I would check this box and I would say that my task is complete. If I refresh my screen, I can see that my drawing folder now contains files. I can also see that I no longer have a task because I completed it. The next thing would be, I'm going to go to a different account here. Essentially what we're going to see is when we open files, we're going to see your files, we're going to have a task, and we're going to say whether this was correct or incorrect. And we come in here and we might say that we see an issue with the files that you've uploaded and ask you to provide different files, or the stamp location is missing, or things like that. And so we will we'll make a comment on our pre-screen. It'll go to you as a checklist item, and we'd send this back to you. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to move your folders to somewhere else, and we'll ask you to re-upload. You'll get an email back. Sorry for the logging back and forth. It's just the best way to show you guys this information. All right, so in this instance, we're just going to revert to giving me the task back. So I'm going to reopen my pre-screen corrections task, and this is going to tell me, you could check here to see what it was sent back for. For right now, we just sent it back to me so I could redo this upload for you guys. Select the files to upload. So you'll fix your files, you'll upload it. If you had any additional files, like now I have 6 sheets. So now when I upload, I'll have 6 sheets because I realized I was missing a file and I added it to the end of my plan set. And I can see that everything uploaded the way that I wanted, and I can move forward, and I can say that I responded to my comments, which I'll go ahead and show what this viewer looks like. It's going to be a little hard to see how it functions because there's nothing here, but there's these columns here for a reference number, a permit type, which what the comments were about, and you'll see here a list of items that our intake staff have identified that were not met based off our minimum requirements to proceed forward to a review. And you can correct those, like, for example, like I talked about, you may need to adjust your stamp location. And once you do all of that, you can check this box that says all comments have been addressed and click complete. It will redo the task. Once you've re-uploaded, it would go back in, and I'm just going to change accounts again and I'm probably going to stay there just to kind of show you guys some information. So essentially, after you do for pre-screen corrections, files will get re-uploaded, and we would go back and do pre-screen corrections, and we would see that you have now uploaded these drawings. We would make sure that they've got the right information, the file names are correct, and if we feel that all the requirements are met, we'll advance this forward to the review stage. And then we'll do a review, and if we make comments on your plans, you'll get a task back that says respond and resubmit. So when you log in and you see a task here, which isn't displayed because I'm not in my applicant account, but when you log in, you'll see in your list of files, and in your instruction window, if you click on that change mark viewer that I brought up that didn't have anything in it, you would see what we made comments for. Another way you can see those is there's a button up in the upper right corner of your screen that says Project Reports. If you click on that, it will load a list of available reports that you can run and view for information about your project. And what you can do is look for the change marks report, and you access it by clicking on the symbol to the left of the report name. And this is what it would, this is a PDF, or it can be printed as a PDF of what the actual change mark viewer looks like. So the same column headings that were there are here, and you'll see information about, has this been completed, it's resolved or unresolved. It'll give you kind of a thumbnail of the comment, which you can try to open. Some people find that they're a little blurry, and I'll show you how to view them a different way in a minute. It'll tell you which sheet number. It says file, but essentially it's the sheet number that has your comment. It'll have a markup name. It'll have the subject about what the change mark is for. Depending on the reviewer, they may type it out like this, or they may have plan review comment number 1. It just depends on how they like to type them out. And then it'll have change mark details, which would be the violation issues that we see with the code sections included. And then there's a space in the change mark viewer where you can provide a response. It's the column all the way over to the right. If you were to type in it, you could, or click in it, you could type into it. And then when you're done, you would save all your responses, and then you would revise your drawings, upload those, and then you would return it to us. So say you want to see the red lines because the thumbnails are just too small to see. There's a symbol for every sheet that we made a markup on, and you can export that report that we just viewed, or you can print the report from the change mark viewer itself to get a list of the comments. And then as you look at the sheet names, you can come to those sheet names, see that there's a symbol here that says there's markups. If you click on that symbol, it'll bring up a window, and you can click on View, and then View, Edit. Depending on the size of the file, it may take a little bit of time to open. So this will show you the sheet, and it will show you over here on the right, it'll have a list of the comments. And as we click on them, it will navigate around the page to show me what those comments are. Some of our comments will be images like the stickers we usually put on paper plans. Others will just be a little note like this, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you it's a scope of work. If you wanted to have like a red line set to distribute to your design team, in our instructions we talk about finding this publish button. If you don't see this, email the address in the instructions and we'll get you publish rights. Click on publish rights and publish it to file type of your choice. You'll choose some information about what you want, and you want to make sure that you're burning in current markups. That will allow the markups that we have put in to show on your drawing. I'm not going to click publish, but if you publish this, it will essentially give you this information, and there will be a list provided that lists all of these comments as a list of deficiencies for that sheet. And then once you have that completed for all sheets, you can distribute those to the appropriate people in your design team for review. It will also help them understand the comments. We find usually when our comments come back with answers or responses that are inefficient or unclear, we call them and they'll be like, well, I read your comment, but I don't know what you were talking about because I didn't see anything. I didn't have any kind of plans with markups. This is how you can provide where the comment is made. And it may have helpful information like an arrow pointing to something, and it might really help your design team understand where our comment was about. All right. So for uploading on top of this, running and resubmitting, I'm actually going to show what that would look like. You would have a task here, and I'm not going to account for that. So you would open your task. You want to upload your files. I want to show that your file names need to be maintained as the same. So if I were to upload new drawings, and if I were to put these ones in and upload these, I can see my names, I can see the sizes, so I should be okay. When I click upload, I will see some different information from what I did on my initial upload. When we get to the second upload or third or fourth, however many it takes, it will talk about versioning. So any files that were highlighted in blue are version candidates, which means that at least the file name is the same. And if the document data is different in some way, then the file will version over here in this folder. Anything that did not come through as identified as blue in this list, those sheets did not have the same file names as there before. And with that, it means that it doesn't go on top of the other file. So I'm going to show what that looks like here in this list. So I have a sheet 2 that still shows a comment, but I also have a sheet 2 that the file name, something happened to it. In this case, it disappeared entirely. A lot of times what we'll see is there'll be like an extra space on the end or an extra space in between these extra words, or a space has been taken out of the words. Something is different in the file name, and it didn't allow it to version like it did here on this cover sheet, where it told me that there's a version 2. If your file was blue on the upload screen after it uploaded, but you don't see a version indicator here, it means that the content of your file did not change. So it means that you probably uploaded the same file that you uploaded the first time again, and the system discards it because it doesn't version the same files with the same data. And by the same data, it will literally check down to the period at the end of a sentence to determine if the data has been changed. So when you have an issue, before you move on and complete things from our side or your side, if you see these issues, make sure you scroll through and look. Don't just complete your task and move on. But if you see that you have these issues, reach out to us and we can come through and you can help us identify what needs to be removed, and we will remove it for you. You won't have these controls that I'm clicking on right now, but we'll remove them for you so that you can go through and upload the remaining sheets you need to upload for a proper submittal. These turned blue, so it hopefully will work out. And we have documents right here where everything is, we have 6 files, which is what we had before. I have some version indicators, but I also have some files that don't have version indicators. So that means that these files, the new ones we tried to upload, were discarded, and you can tell because the date on this file is 3/20, but the date on this file is the date for today, and this one versioned and this one didn't. So it would require more evaluation on your part, but the goal is to get all of these to be version 2. The exception for that is if you're adding a sheet in the middle of the review to this. So if I added sheet 6 onto the end, then on my back check, then it would not get a version indicator because it did not have a file preceding it. If you also inserted one in the middle and there's a decimal, so our intake staff will look through here and they will look for sheets that don't have a version indicator and try to evaluate if the file name changed, if it has a decimal and that's why it's being submitted now and it wasn't before. If we don't understand an obvious reason as to why the version indicator isn't there, we'll reach out to you and ask for clarification, because we want to make sure that your files are being reviewed appropriately. And we might point out that these 3 files, for instance, don't have a version indicator, don't have other files that appear to be named them, and they don't have decimals on their 4-digit sequential number. And it may be that we ask you to confirm that the file you uploaded is the actual revised file that you're looking for, because while the file name turned blue when you tried to upload, it did not version, which means not a single piece of data inside this file was updated. So hopefully all that made sense in terms of what we're looking for with versioning indicators and the issues with file names. So another thing with file names is, what if you want to change this to say this was actually supposed to be the 3rd floor? You cannot change the file name and have it proceed forward, especially if we have if we had a plan review comment on that sheet. What you would do is you would leave this file in, but you would take your data and replace it with this sheet has been deleted. Then you could do a decimal, or in this case, a sheet 7, because there's only 6 in here. But if this had 40 sheets in it, you could do a decimal 6.1 to fit between sheet 6 and sheet 7. And you could at that point relabel this as A202 or 303, whatever needs to be 3rd floor. If the data in here is for 3rd floor, but your file name is wrong, you can relabel it and insert it. But the original thing that you uploaded, especially if we've already done a review, it can't be fixed once we've done a review. We don't want to leave it in there. If we make comments on it, we don't want to delete it because we don't want to lose the history, because it'll still be applicable to your content. We would just, your comment responses would be, comment addressed and placed on new sheet for 3rd floor. So hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, please ask us. I'm sure you'll hear from us if we find issues on your uploads. So at this point, you would complete your task on that task window. You would say you've addressed all items. You would provide a response to all items in that change mark viewer. So let me pull up this report again just to show you. In this report that we ran, in the change mark viewer, this is just a PDF, but in the actual viewer that you click on in your task window, we would want to see a response in the column for applicant response for every one of our comments. And this would be in place of a Word document or an Excel sheet that you normally provide for paper plans. But we don't want to have an electronic Word document or Excel document uploaded with your responses. We want your responses in here. So then you would submit it back to us. It would go in for review. And then from there, if we're done and we go through it and all the comments are adequate, all the data has been correct, everything revised is code compliant, and we've reached the end of the happy result for approving your plans, then you'll get a notification that says your plans have been approved. You'll get an email that says you can come into Project Docs and get your approved plans from the approved folder. And you should also get an email from GovModus that says you have a permit that has been issued. If you don't also have an email from GovModus that says your project has been issued a permit and an associated document attached to it, please reach out to us and we will get that issued to you. It's just to go over what document will look like in a document file name, a 2-digit number, 01, and then the name of the document. The next one is 02 and the name of the document. And these are multi-page documents. See if it'll open up for me. So it's a multi-page PDF. We allow these to be uploaded you saw how much quicker this uploaded or opened up versus one of the drawing pages. That's why we allow these to be multi-page and we don't allow the drawings to be multi-page. Once you have all of your drawings and permit issued, you can go forth and do that. So now let's talk about the common mistakes that we were going to talk about earlier. So the common mistakes, we kind of discussed them: uploading files into the wrong folders. Drawing sheets should be in the drawings folder and documents should be in the documents folder. Incorrect document orientation. We do get sometimes where the drawing sheets are in portrait mode and not in landscape. We'll have to return them for that. So as you upload them, be on the lookout for that information because it will look that way on your end before you complete your task and push it towards our side of the program. The drawing file requirements were not followed. So you didn't have single sheets or you didn't have the correct file naming standards. Your task wasn't completed. So sometimes we get people who just go to the drawing folder, they upload their files, and they think that's it. They never accepted their task. They never checked the box that said, I have uploaded all my required files, and they did not click the complete task button. And then if you're monitoring the email address that you signed up for your account with, you will see that you'll start getting pings that you have an outstanding task. If you're not monitoring that email address, though, you may not notice that, and it may be several months, and we have had projects that have called us and have asked that it's been 4 months, and I'm wondering when my plans will be complete, and we look into it, and we inform them that they never actually officially submitted to us, and therefore they haven't actually started the plan review process, and then they start the process at that point. The system does automatically sign out after 120 minutes or so of inactivity. So if you're working in there for a lengthy time, please save your stuff in GovModus. And Project Ducks, there's nothing to say, but what you do with your comment responses. So in your comment responses, if you're typing them in and you've been in there for a while, save them so that if you get signed out on accident, that you don't have to retype everything. So that's pretty much the stuff we go over for plan review, for submitting, reviewing, responding to comments, getting approvals, getting a permit. We've showed some documents that you received through the system. What to do after the fact. So under our construction projects tab, you'll also see a link for after permit issuance during construction, which will take you to another document. If you had paper plans, we will talk through what you need to do for uploading paper plans to manage documents. And we remind you that this is not necessary for electronic plans. Your electronic plans are stored in Project Docs and can be accessed by all of our staff. You do not need to download them from Project Docs and upload them into GovModus. Change orders. So unlike addendums, which are before construction, for the purposes of our offices, change orders are requested to be made after construction has commenced. So if it's the paper format, this will tell you the steps you need to take to get your instructions over to your field deputy and how they will assist you in processing your change order. And also we have instructions for an electronic format of the steps that need to be taken by you and the field deputy that you should work with to get everything set up ahead of time with the folders in Project Docs, specifically the change order folder, and work with your deputy. Then they will tell you when you can upload revised sheets and kind of help you through that process. Scheduling inspections, we talked about that a little bit already. You can reach out to the supervisor in our contact list, or you can schedule it as a pre-identified item through GovModus by clicking the request inspections in the control panel and schedule the inspection based on the date that you know for sure you'll be ready for an inspection. After we do inspections, we issue reports, whether it's a pass or it's a fail. It'll have deficiencies if it's a fail. We need to have the reports signed in order to be able to issue this certificate of completion or occupancy through the system. So I talked about it briefly from my GovModus dashboard. In this section for my signatures required, I can see that for the permit that I have a signature required. So if I click on this link, it will load a new window. It will show me the report. So it'll show me my project information. It'll show me my inspection information, what type of inspection it was for, the status of that inspection, some basic comments about the inspection, and then specifically a violation of a code deficiency and what that code section is, and any additional comments that are specific to that code section that the deputy documented during your inspection. After you review all of these comments, there are 3 pages in this report, so you can click up here for additional pages. But once you've reviewed the whole document, you can sign it. There's a couple options. You can sketch to sign, or you can upload a signature if you have one on file in your computer, a scan of it. You can upload that to sign with. In this case, I'm just going to choose sketch to sign. I'm going to save it. It will preview for me over here. If you're okay with this, you can hit submit. If not, you can hit clear and type another one and hit save, and then it will revise your signature if you're unhappy with it. Once you're done, you can hit submit, and it will generate a PDF of the report, including that you signed it and the date you signed it, and it'll be the same report but have a signature on it. This should also be emailed through the system to the email address associated with your GovMotus Fire account, or you could choose to download it straight from here since it is already ready for it to be downloaded right after you signed it. All right, that is everything we wanted to go over today. Again, this was just to go over the submission requirements, how to get the information on our website, making sure you're up to date by looking at our website before you submit, what GovMotus looks like, the documents you receive, the general idea of what the process is, and showing you some things that we've seen that are issues and how to get in front of those and not make them cause delays in your project. That was really our intent for today. Hopefully it was helpful, and hopefully this will help you guys get some better ideas of what you need to do for the submission to our office and lead to some quicker review turnarounds and some approvals. Thank you for joining, and we hope you guys had enough information. Please feel free to leave us more comments and we'll try to answer them, or reach out to the help desk and we can try to provide specifics to individual projects that weren't really designed to be discussed in today's webinar. Thank you very much.